Looking back at everything that happened, I can't help but wonder if there were warning signs I missed. Those little red flags that wave in your face, but somehow get dismissed as just a passing breeze. Maybe if I'd been less focused on building something for our future and more tuned in to what was happening right under my nose, I could have spared Owen all that pain. But hindsight's always crystal clear, isn't it? My name is Daniel Warren. I'm 34 years old, and 10 years ago, my life took a sharp turn when our parents died in a head-on collision on their way back from their anniversary dinner. Just like that, I became responsible for my kid brother, Owen, who was barely 14 at the time. We had other family, sure, an aunt in Oregon, a couple of cousins scattered across the Midwest, but none who were willing or able to take in a teenager. So there I was, fresh out of engineering school with a mountain of student debt, suddenly playing the role of both brother and parent. I still remember the day I picked Owen up from school to tell him. The look on his face when I broke the news is seared in my memory. He didn't cry, not right away. Instead, he just stared at me with these hollow eyes that seemed to be asking, "What happens to us now?" I didn't have a good answer then, but I swore to myself I'd figure it out. The first year was the hardest. We moved from our family home in Michigan to a cramped apartment in Boston, where I'd landed an entry-level job at an energy company. The pay was decent, but between rent, Owen's school needs, and my loan payments, we were barely treading water. Many nights, after Owen had gone to bed, I'd sit at our tiny kitchen table, poring over bills and budget spreadsheets, trying to stretch every dollar. Despite everything, Owen adjusted better than I expected. He threw himself into school, joined a robotics club, made new friends. Sometimes I'd catch him staring at old family photos when he thought I wasn't looking, but he never complained about our situation. Not once. "We're going to be okay, right, Dan?" he asked me one night, about 6 months after the accident. I looked him straight in the eye. "Yeah, buddy. It might take some time, but we're going to do more than okay. I promise." That promise became my North Star, the thing that drove every decision I made for the next decade. Little did I know where it would lead us, or how that same determination to give Owen a good life would eventually open the door to people who saw us not as survivors, but as targets. I spent 3 years working for that energy company, climbing the ladder one rung at a time. But every time I looked at our power bills, I couldn't help but think there had to be a better way. The technology was stuck in the past, and nobody seemed interested in pushing it forward. One night, after Owen had fallen asleep, I started sketching ideas for a new type of solar panel. Not the clunky, inefficient ones you see on rooftops, but something that could revolutionize how we store and use energy. It was just a hobby at first, a way to keep my engineering mind sharp. "What's all this?" Owen asked one morning, finding my sketches spread across the kitchen table. I looked up from my coffee. "Just some ideas I've been playing with. Might be nothing." Owen picked up one of the diagrams, studying it with the kind of intensity only a science-obsessed teenager could muster. "This isn't nothing, Dan. This is seriously cool." That vote of confidence from my little brother was like rocket fuel. I started waking up at 5 a.m. to work on my designs before heading to the office. After Owen went to bed, I'd stay up until midnight, refining calculations and researching materials. 6 months later, I had a crude prototype built in our garage. It wasn't pretty, but it worked, storing twice the energy of commercial panels at half the size. My boss's reaction when I showed him? He laughed. "Cute project, Warren, but stick to your actual job if you want to keep paying rent." That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I typed up my resignation letter, then called 3 former classmates who worked in engineering and renewable energy. "I'm starting my own company," I told Owen over breakfast. "It's a risk, but I think it's one worth taking." Instead of looking worried, my brother's face lit up. "About time. Can I help? I could handle your website or something." I reached across the table and messed up his hair like I used to when he was little. "This is a family business now. Solar Core Energy. How's that sound?" 2 years of brutal work followed. 16-hour days, maxed out credit cards, and plenty of failures. But we kept pushing. Owen helped after school, becoming surprisingly adept at explaining our technology to potential investors. The breakthrough came when our 3rd-generation panel caught the attention of a major tech magazine. Their headline, "The future of solar has arrived." Within a week, my phone was ringing off the hook. Investors, manufacturers, distributors, everyone wanted a piece. Richard Davis was one of those callers. Owner of Davis Industries, a manufacturing giant looking to go green to improve their image. "This is revolutionary," he said during our first meeting, turning our prototype in his hands. "I want in, Warren. My company can mass-produce these at a scale no one else can match." I should have seen the calculation in his eyes. The way he assessed not just the product, but me, sizing up whether I was a threat or an opportunity. But I was too focused on what his backing could mean for us. "We need to celebrate," I told Owen that night after signing our first major deal. "You're looking at the founder of $1 million company. I always knew you could do it," Owen said, grinning. "Wait till girls at school find out my brother's officially a big shot. If only I'd known then how that success would make us targets. How some people see others' hard work as just another opportunity to take what isn't theirs." With Richard Davis's manufacturing capabilities behind us, Solar Core Energy exploded onto the market. Our first commercial units sold out within days. 3 months later, we had orders from major utility companies across the country. I was living the American dream, or so I thought. "We should bring you to the company retreat next month," Richard said during one of our meetings. "My execs would love to hear your vision for the future of energy." I nodded, trying to look appropriately grateful while keeping my guard up. I'd learned that in business, nothing comes without strings. "Sound great. I've got some new ideas I've been wanting to share." Richard leaned back in his leather chair, nodding thoughtfully. "Bring your brother too. My daughter Haley will be there. She's about his age, I think. Might be nice for him to meet some new people." At the time, I thought it was just normal networking. Rich people introducing their kids to other rich people's kids. The kind of thing that's been happening at country clubs for generations. Owen was hesitant when I told him. "A corporate retreat? Sounds boring as hell, Dan." "It's 3 days at Lake Tahoe," I replied, folding a dress shirt and placing it in my suitcase. 5-star resort, great food, and yes, a bit of schmoozing. But it's important for the business. Owen sighed dramatically, then grinned. "Fine, but you owe me." The Davis family compound at Lake Tahoe was exactly what you'd expect from old money trying to look tastefully new. Sprawling timber and glass mansion, private dock with boats that probably cost more than our first apartment, staff discreetly moving around like well-dressed ghosts. Haley Davis was waiting on the deck when we arrived. Tall, blonde, confident in that way that comes from never having heard the word no. She zeroed in on Owen immediately. "You must be Owen," she said, extending her hand. "Dad said you were coming. I've been dying to meet someone under 50 all weekend." I watched my brother transform before my eyes. His usual casual slouch straightened. His voice dropped half an octave. "Nice place you've got here," he said, trying to sound unimpressed. "I'll show you around," she offered, linking her arm through his. "There's a game room in the basement that no one uses." As they walked away, Richard appeared at my shoulder. "They seem to be hitting it off," he observed, sounding pleased. "Teenagers." I shrugged, trying to ignore an uneasy feeling in my gut. "Owen's a good kid. Smart." "So I've heard," Richard replied. "You've done well with him. Not many young men would have stepped up like you did." The praise felt good, I won't deny it. Having someone recognize the sacrifices I'd made. But now I wonder if that was the first test, seeing how easily I could be flattered, seeing what buttons to push. That weekend marked the beginning of what would become a carefully orchestrated disaster. I was too focused on impressing potential investors to notice how much time Owen was spending with Haley, or the way Richard kept steering conversations to how family businesses should stick together. By the time we left on Sunday, Owen was already planning when he'd see Haley again, and I, fool that I was, thought it was just a harmless summer crush. I sacrificed everything to raise my brother after our parents died. Then I built $1 million green energy company from nothing. Now his fiancée and her father are circling like sharks. Something's off about this perfect love story, and I'm starting to think they want more than just wedding vows. They want everything I've built. "You were right about her," Owen admitted one evening. "She's not like other rich kids. She actually has genuine interest in engineering, and she's easy to talk to about everything." I nodded, happy that Owen found someone who understood his passions, but couldn't fully suppress my feeling of unease. Everything was happening too fast and too conveniently aligned with Richard Davis's business interests. Owen and Haley's harmless summer crush burned hot through June and July. They were inseparable, boating at the lake, attending concerts in the city, hanging out with Haley's private school friends. I was busy with Solarcore's expansion, so I didn't pay as much attention as I should have. Haley's dad invited me to their 4th of July party at their lake house. Owen announced at breakfast one morning. It's like their biggest event of the year. Everyone's going to be there. I looked up from my laptop. Everyone meaning. Just, important people. Owen mumbled, suddenly fascinated by his cereal. Haley's friends, her family, some business people. I closed my laptop. Owen, I know you like this girl, but we've talked about balance. You've been with her almost every day. It's not just about Haley, he interrupted, meeting my eyes. Her dad's been talking to me about college. He knows people at MIT, Dan. Said he could put in a good word. That gave me pause. Richard Davis did have connections at top universities, the kind of connections that could make a difference for Owen's future. And wasn't that what I've been working for all these years? To give him opportunities? Fine, I relented. But I'm coming too. I should be there to network anyway. The Davis 4th of July extravaganza was legendary in business circles. Their lakefront estate transformed into a red, white, and blue showcase of wealth and influence. Executives, politicians, and celebrities mingled on manicured lawns, while fireworks worth a small fortune exploded overhead. I lost track of Owen almost immediately. He was swept into Haley's orbit, moving among her friends with a confidence I barely recognized. When had my little brother become this poised young man who could navigate cocktail parties and make small talk with CEOs? He's quite impressive, Richard said, appearing at my side with 2 whiskeys. He handed me one. Mature for his age. You've done well with him. Thanks, I replied, watching Owen laugh at something Haley whispered in his ear. Though I can't take all the credit. He's always been smart. Richard nodded. Haley's quite taken with him. Says he's different from the other boys she knows. More substantial. I sipped my drink, unsure how to respond. It was flattering, of course, but something felt off. Haley Davis could have anyone. Why was she so interested in my brother? I've been meaning to talk to you about something, Richard continued, his voice dropping slightly. A potential opportunity. Davis Industries is looking to acquire more innovative companies in the green energy space. Your patents, combined with our manufacturing and distribution network, it could be transformative. I nearly choked on my whiskey. Solarcore isn't for sale, Richard. He raised his hands in mock surrender. Of course. I'm not suggesting anything immediate. Just keep an open mind. Family businesses working together can create powerful legacies. Before I could question what he meant by family businesses, Haley appeared, breathless and radiant. Daddy, can Owen stay over? A bunch of us are going out on the boat at sunrise. Richard smiled indulgently. If his brother says it's okay. They both turned to me, and I felt suddenly outnumbered. I suppose one night wouldn't hurt, I conceded. As I drove home alone that night, watching fireworks fade in my rearview mirror, I couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was in motion, something I wasn't fully seeing. A week later, Owen dropped the bomb. I'm in love with her, Dan. I've never felt this way about anyone. In love. I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. Owen, you've known her for what? 2 months. Owen's face hardened in that way teenagers have perfected for centuries. Half defiance, half hurt. It doesn't matter how long we've known each other. What matters is how we feel. I took a deep breath. This wasn't just about some summer romance. Owen was 18, heading to college in the fall. The last thing he needed was to get tangled up with a girl from a different world. Look, I said, softening my tone. I'm not saying what you're feeling isn't real. But you're both young, and you're about to start different paths. Actually, Owen cut in, we might not be. Haley's applying to MIT too. Her dad thinks with her grades and his connections, she's got a good shot. That stopped me cold. It seemed too convenient. Richard Davis's daughter, suddenly interested in the same college as my brother? After years of never mentioning MIT, has Richard been pushing this? I asked carefully. Owen rolled his eyes. Not everything is a conspiracy, Dan. Haley's been interested in biochemical engineering for years. The conversation went downhill from there. Owen storming off. Me left wondering when the gap between us had grown so wide. That night, I called Mike Shun, an old college friend who now worked as a financial analyst. If anyone could give me insight into Richard Davis and Davis Industries, it was Mike. Davis? Mike said when I reached him. Yeah, I know the company. Old school manufacturing transitioning to green tech. Stock's been up and down. What about the man himself? I pressed. Mike paused. Depends who you ask. Business journals call him visionary. But there are rumors, hostile takeovers, patents mysteriously similar to those of companies he tried to acquire. Another pause. Why do you ask? I explained the situation, try not to sound paranoid. Am I overreacting? I asked finally. Hard to say, Mike replied. But I'd watch your back. And maybe look into their family's history with young entrepreneurs. The next day I dug deeper. What I found sent ice through my veins. 3 companies, all started by young innovators, all eventually acquired by Davis Industries under suspicious circumstances. And in 2 cases, there was a personal connection. One founder had dated Richard's niece, another had been mentored by Richard's brother. When I confronted Owen with what I'd found, he dismissed it outright. You're just looking for reasons to break us up, he snapped. Haley isn't part of some corporate espionage plot. She loves me, Dan. Why can't you be happy for me? I backed off, realizing I was only pushing him further away. But I doubled security on our intellectual property and patents, installed new encryption on our servers, and made sure our key engineers signed updated non-disclosure agreements. One evening, returning to the office after everyone had left, I found a desk light still on in the R&D department. As I approached, I heard a familiar laugh. Haley's. She and Owen were huddled over his computer, her phone out, apparently taking photos of something on the screen. I clear my throat. They jumped apart like guilty teenagers, which, to be fair, they were. Daniel. Haley's smile was too bright. Owen was just showing me some of the amazing work you guys do here. Owen looked torn between embarrassment and defiance. We weren't doing anything wrong. It's late, I said evenly. Haley should probably head home. After she left, Owen rounded on me. That was humiliating. You treated us like criminals. What was she photographing? I demanded. Just some basic schematics, he muttered. Nothing confidential. She's interested in my work. Your work? Owen, this is proprietary technology. It's not show-and-tell material. His next words hit like a physical blow. Maybe I'd have my own work if you didn't keep me trapped in your shadow. The tension between Owen and me stretched into fall. He started MIT, and as predicted, Haley enrolled too. They saw each other constantly, while my calls and texts to Owen went increasingly unanswered. Meanwhile, SolarCore continued to grow, though I'd firmly rejected Richard's acquisition overtures. Then came Thanksgiving. Owen had promised to come home, our first holiday together since he'd left for college. I spent days preparing, cleaning the house, cooking his favorite foods, even putting up early Christmas decorations because I knew how much he loved them. When the doorbell rang, I threw it open, grinning. My smile froze when I saw not just Owen, but Haley beside him, her hand conspicuously resting on his arm, and Richard Davis standing behind them both, looking smugly satisfied. Daniel, Owen said, his voice strange and formal. Hope you don't mind, but I invited Haley and her dad to join us. We have something to announce. I managed to invite them in, operating on autopilot, as I added plates to the table and adjusted dinner plans. Richard brought expensive wine and made himself comfortable in our living room, examining our family photos with calculated interest. After dinner, Owen clinked his glass nervously. So, we wanted you all here because... He looked at Haley, who nodded encouragingly. Haley and I are engaged. The room tilted sideways. They were sophomores in college. Had known each other less than 6 months. Were barely adults themselves. Congratulations, Richard boomed before I could respond. I couldn't be prouder to welcome Owen to our family. I forced a smile, excused myself, and escaped to the kitchen on the pretense of getting dessert. Owen followed me. Say something, he demanded, his voice low. I gripped the counter, steadying myself. What do you want me to say, Owen? That I think getting engaged at 19 is a great idea? That I believe you've thought this through? I love her, he insisted. We want the same things. And what does her father want? I challenged. Because he's been trying to get his hands on SolarCore since day one. Owen's face hardened. Not everything is about you or your company, Dan. Haley and I are separate from all that. Are you? I asked. Then why is Richard talking about joining our families and building a legacy together? Why has he been pushing this relationship from the start? You're being paranoid, Owen snapped. Richard has been more supportive of me than you have lately. Because he wants something from you. I hissed, then immediately regretted my tone. Owen shook his head, disappointment written across his face. "I thought you'd be happy for me." He walked out, leaving me alone in the kitchen, wondering how things had gone so wrong. When I returned to the dining room, Richard was already discussing wedding venues, as if the matter was settled. "Spring wedding at our Napa estate would be lovely," he was saying. "We could combine it with a shareholder meeting, make a weekend of it." I locked eyes with him across the table, and for a moment, his mask slipped. The calculation there was unmistakable. This wasn't about young love. This was business, and I was being outmaneuvered at every turn. Later, when Haley went to freshen up, Richard cornered me on the back porch. "You should reconsider my offer," he said quietly. "Solar Core would thrive under Davis Industries, and it would make the transition smoother for everyone." "What transition?" I demanded. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Owen's transition into our family, of course. It would be so much easier if our business interests were aligned." I needed proof before confronting Owen. Accusations without evidence would only push him further into the Davis family's orbit. I started digging deeper, calling in favors from industry contacts. A former colleague of the patent office provided the first lead: 3 patents recently filed by Davis Industries with suspicious similarities to our unreleased technology. The same technology I'd seen Haley photographing that night in the office. Financial records showed Davis Industries was in trouble. Their public image of success masked a company hemorrhaging money. Their stock was propped up by promises of revolutionary green technology, our technology. I hired a private investigator specializing in corporate espionage. He uncovered a pattern. Richard Davis targeted innovative companies through personal connections. In previous cases, young founders lost everything after Davis manipulated them into disastrous business decisions. The final piece came from Richard's former assistant. She contacted me after hearing rumors about Owen and Haley. "I've seen this playbook before," she told me over coffee. "Richard identifies promising technology, then uses Haley to get close to the founder. They've done it twice that I know of. And Haley's in on it." I asked, heart sinking for Owen. She nodded grimly. "It's a family business in more ways than one." She slid a USB drive across the table. "Emails, meeting notes, strategy documents. Richard isn't as careful as he thinks." That evening, I reviewed the evidence. The Davises weren't just after Solar Core. They want to gut it, take our patents, and discard the shell. And they were using my brother to do it. My phone buzzed with a text from Owen. "Meeting with wedding planner tomorrow. Haley asking if you're coming." I stared at the message, rage and heartbreak warring inside me. How could I protect him without destroying him? I texted back, "I'll be there. We need to talk before, though. Breakfast at Riley's? Just us." The response came quickly. "Can't. Meeting Richard's lawyer about signing some papers. Pre-wedding stuff. See you at planner's office at 11. Alarm bells rang in my head. Papers? Pre-wedding stuff requiring Richard's lawyer? I called immediately, but got voicemail. I left a message. "Hey, don't sign anything until we talk." "I mean it, Owen. Nothing. Call me." He didn't call back. I spent the night organizing the evidence, preparing what I would say. By morning, I had my answer. I wouldn't just tell Owen. I'd show him. The wedding planner's office was all glass and chrome. I arrived early, evidence folder under my arm, mentally prepared for confrontation. I found Owen alone in a conference room, reviewing documents with growing confusion. "Dan," he said, looking up. "Good timing. I need your advice on something." I closed the door. "Let me guess. Richard's lawyers gave you papers about joining the family businesses as part of the marriage." Owen's eyebrows shot up. "How did you know?" "Because this isn't about love, Owen. It's about business." I placed my folder on the table and laid out the evidence. The patent filings, the previous victims, the financial desperation behind Davis Industries' facade. Owen listened silently, his face paling. When I finished, he pushed the papers away and stood. "No," he said finally. "Haley loves me. This is just business stuff." I hated what I had to do next. I played the recording the investigator had captured. Haley and Richard discussing their investment in Owen. "He's such a puppy," Haley was saying, laughing. "Follows me everywhere, tells me everything." "That's my girl," Richard replied. "Just keep him on the hook until the acquisition's complete." I stopped the recording, watching devastation wash over my brother's face. Owen slumped back into his chair, staring at papers that would have signed away everything we'd built. The door opened, and Richard and Haley entered, smiles fading when they saw the evidence spread across the table. "Owen, darling, what's wrong?" Haley rushed forward. He shrugged off her hand. "Don't," he said, voice hollow. Richard assessed the situation quickly. "Daniel, I see you've been spreading allegations. Perhaps we should discuss this privately." I stood, facing him squarely. "There's nothing to discuss. You tried to use my brother to steal my company." Richard's mask slipped. "You have no idea who you're dealing with, Warren. I can crush your operation overnight." Owen rose to stand beside me. "No, you can't. Not anymore. I raised my brother alone after we lost everything," I said, stepping toward Richard. "I built something from nothing while protecting him." Richard sneered. "Who do you think you are? You're nobody. Do you even know who I am?" I cut him off, my voice rising. "I'm the man who's about to destroy you." Richard's face went pale as I revealed my final evidence, documentation of his company's financial fraud, already sent to the SEC. Richard lunged for the folder, but Owen blocked him, standing firmly at my side. For the first time since this nightmare began, we were truly united. "It's over, Richard," I said. "These documents prove your company falsified financial statements to investors. The SEC will have questions. You'll regret this," Richard snarled, but his bravado was crumbling. "I have connections you can't imagine." "So do we," Owen replied, finding his voice at last. "I may have been naive about Haley, but I wasn't stupid about business. I made friends at MIT. Influential friends who've been watching your company with interest." Haley's composure finally broke. "Daddy, fix this," she demanded, her mask of affection for Owen completely gone. Richard grabbed his daughter's arm. "We're leaving. My lawyers will be in touch." "They can call my lawyers," I replied calmly, "in the FBI's corporate fraud division." After they stormed out, Owen collapsed into a chair, head in his hands. I sat beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Owen," I said quietly. "I wanted to be wrong." He looked up, eyes red but dry. All this time, I thought I was finally building something of my own, but I was just being used. Not by me, I promised. Never by me. The following weeks were brutal. Richard Davis was arrested for securities fraud. Davis Industries' stock collapsed as investors fled. Haley disappeared to Europe, her social media suddenly silent. Owen withdrew from MIT temporarily, needing space to heal. He spent a month at a cabin in Vermont, hiking and reading. When he returned, something had shifted. The betrayal had hardened him, but not broken him. "I've been thinking," he said one evening as we shared beers on my deck. "I want to come work at SolarCore. Officially, I mean. Not as your little brother, but as an engineer. I have some ideas for improving the storage capacity." I studied him with pride. "You'd have to interview like anyone else. No special treatment." He grinned, a flash of his old self emerging. "Wouldn't expect any boss." We clinked bottles, watching the sunset paint the sky in orange and gold. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Trust, once broken, heals slowly. But we had something the Devises never understood, a foundation built on genuine care, not calculation. "Thanks for saving me," Owen said suddenly. "Not just from them. For myself." I nodded, words unnecessary between brothers who had weathered so much together. The SolarCore campus sprawled across what used to be abandoned industrial land. Solar panels glinted in the California sun. Our panels, producing clean energy for thousands of homes and businesses. I walked through the main research building, nodding to employees as I passed. In 5 years, we'd grown from a struggling startup to an industry leader. Our technology had revolutionized renewable energy storage, just as I dreamed it would. Owen's lab was at the end of the corridor, glass walls showcasing his team's work on next-generation solar materials. At 30, my brother had become one of the industry's brightest minds, respected not for his connection to me, but for his own innovations. "Big day," I said, entering his lab. The Richardson contract came through. Owen grinned, removing his safety goggles. "That's what? 5 major utility companies now." 6, I corrected. "And the European expansion is on schedule for next quarter." We walked to the window, overlooking the manufacturing floor. Hundreds of workers assembled our panels, creating technology that was changing the world. "Heard anything about the Devises lately?" Owen asked casually. I shook my head. Richard's still serving his sentence. The company was broken up and sold off. Haley's married to some European count, according to industry gossip. Ancient history, Owen said with a shrug. The betrayal had left scars, but they'd faded with time and success. Later that evening, we hosted a company barbecue at my house. Owen arrived with his girlfriend, a brilliant physicist he'd met at a conference. Watching them together, the genuine affection, the intellectual spark, I felt a profound relief. He learned to trust again, cautiously but completely. As the sun set, I raised a glass to the assembled Solar Core family. To persistence, I toasted, and to building something that matters. Owen caught my eye across the crowd and nodded slightly. We'd come so far from that cramped apartment where I'd sketched my first designs. The road had been harder than I ever imagined, with betrayals I never saw coming. But standing there, surrounded by the family we'd chosen and the company we'd built, I knew one thing for certain. Everything I'd sacrificed had been worth it, not just for the success, but for the man my brother had become. To family, Owen added to my toast. The real kind. Everyone drank to that,